This is a 1922 Packard Series 116 Phaeton. Why should anybody be interested in this car? Well, stay tuned and find out. My good friend Bob asked me to bring this 1922 Packard 116 in and get it running for him again. And my question to him was, why? What are you going to do with it? And he said he wanted to go get ice cream in it like he used to do with the soccer team 40 years ago. And I said, okay. I had no interest at all in it. None. I thought it was stodgy, unattractive, downright boring. Why would anybody be interested in a 1922 model 116 Packard? It's not even the 126, the longer wheelbase one. Well, this car has a lesson for all car manufacturers that they even struggle with today. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918, the war to end all wars would come to an end with the signing of the armistice. World War I was finally over, and America would turn inward once again and put America first. Warren Harding was elected president on the notion of a return to normalcy, whatever that was. But America was in for anything but normalcy for the next 10 years. The enthusiasm following World War I would be throttled by a serious recession. Prices and unemployment were rising, and wages were falling, proving to be a disastrous combination for the automobile industry. And compound that with the fact that you had to pay cash for a car, for bankers would only loan money on commercial vehicles. America was being brought together like never before. East Pittsburgh radio station KDKA had its first commercial broadcast on November the 2nd, 1920, and there was a rush to the airwaves and a push to have a radio in every house. The telephone was becoming commonplace along with the movies. It seemed like there was a movie theater in every town. And with the lessons learned about mass production during World War I, America would be brought together by the automobile like never before. American automobile manufacturers could produce automobiles at a much lower cost. Most blatant example was the Model T Ford. Priced at under $500, this car put more Americans on the road than ever before. Packard too learned the lesson of mass production during the World War I with the production of the Liberty engine. Gone were the days when a guy with a screwdriver and an idea could be a successful car company. After World War I, you needed capital and lots of it, and you also needed experience in mass production. With it, you would be successful. Without it, you were gone. In 1920, the automobile industry sold about 2 million cars. And in 1921, they only sold about 1.5 million cars, and they had a lot of leftover inventory. Packard was a very well-run company, but they would see a loss of almost $1 million in 1921. Meanwhile, over at Cadillac, they were in quite a disarray, but they were outselling Packard by 3 to 1. In 1920, Packard introduced the single-six Series 116, this car here. This car was in development a full 8 years before its debut in 1920. Colonel Jesse Vincent was in charge of the project. Packard knew that the Twin Six could not be mass-produced, and this car was to target the Cadillac V8 market at $2,500. But they really missed the mark. It came out at a whopping $3,645. This was an absolute killer, along with the fact that Packard buyers, Packard enthusiasts, thought that this car was stodgy and unattractive and didn't offer a whole lot more value than a Model T Ford priced at 1/5 the cost. This car was a dismal failure. Packard offered up both price reductions and advertising campaigns to try and solve the problem of this 116 not selling, but it did not work. So in February 1922, they debuted the Model 126 and the 133. This car offered a longer wheelbase of 126 inches and 133 inches. It also had a change in styling, and it was far more what the Packard enthusiasts, the Packard buyers, were looking for. The $2,500 price range was met with this car debuting at $2,485. So both with the turn in the economy and the proper styling and hitting their target price, Packard 126 and 133s were selling like hotcakes. And by June of 1922, they were selling over 2,000 cars a month. They couldn't keep up with demand, and Packard had learned their lesson. Give the customer styling, performance, and the right price, and the cars are gonna sell. Bob, I got your Packard in here.
Good.
Well, it looks like to me you got some kind of a gas problem.
Yeah, that's why that paint is crazing or wobbling.
Go ahead and hit the pump, let's see what happens. It looks like it was dripping down the side here, but it's not now. No, it looks fine. Oh, here it comes out the front now. Okay, well let's check it. Let's check the fuel pressure and see what we got, because we got fuel coming out the front, and we shouldn't have that. We'll take the line off and we'll put a fuel pressure gauge on it.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you.
Jam that thing in that thing right there. Okay, Bob, go ahead and turn on the fuel pump.
Okay, here we go.
You get about 4.5, 5 pounds, huh?
A little too much.
Yeah, what do you think? Pound and a half?
Yeah, just enough to keep the carburetor full.
Okay. For some reason, Bob elected to bypass the vacuum tank on the firewall and elected to put a rotary fuel pump underneath the floorboard. Well, you have to have a pressure regulator with these, or you'll push the fuel right past the needle and seat in the carburetor. Okay, Bob, let's check it again. I get about 1 3/4.
Perfect. I got the throttle.
Problem solved. The pressure regulator did the trick.
Do you think that it was smoking because there was too much oil in it?
Probably so.
Okay. How do we check the oil in this thing? There's no dipstick.
Well, that's where you add it. That's pretty obvious. But what you do, which is really stupid, it takes a lot of oil, and you don't know how much oil you have, but you don't want to overfill it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
guess what? Here's a lever, and you turn this lever to the left, and then you look under here, and when you start seeing oil running out, then you turn the lever back off and quit adding oil, because you now have enough oil.
Oh, no way.
How dumb is that?
No way. That's not happening in my garage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they were further along in 22 than that. I don't know why Packard stuck with that. Who came up with that idea should have gone back to engineering school. We got a problem.
Look at that.
we got a serious.
I think we're going to have to replace the wiring.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Think there'll be any sparks when we start her up?
Oh, don't even mention it, please.
You know, that's my new name for this car, Sparky.
Yeah,
Sparky.
right. Well, it's got to be called something other than what I've been calling it. But that was so much fun. Those little squealy kids, and they're just having a ball.
Well, after some reworking of the carburetor and the wiring, we got Bob to the ice cream parlor. He enjoyed ice cream like he did 40 years ago with the soccer team. We'll call this mission accomplished. Well, let's take the old girl out and see how it performs. Packard made some claims about this car. We'll see if it's actually true. I think most people would agree that putzing around town in this car to go get ice cream and stuff like that would be a lot of fun. The question is would you want to jump in this thing and drive it 500 miles? I think I'd rather play strip poker with Michael Moore than drive this thing 500 miles. This model 126 was available in only one color combination. Blue body and black fenders on the touring cars. That's it. But you didn't get a gold pinstripe. I found that the body construction to this thing is really quite poor. It has applied moldings that are nailed on. There is no real ride in the thing. You just bounce down the road. But for 1922, what do you expect? Although I find it to be very cheap for a Packard. But they say that this car was very good looking for 1922. Doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'm still having a good time. I wouldn't exactly call it super comfortable. It rides like a 1952 Mack truck. Every bump, you need a new set of kidneys. Packard reported this car accelerated from 0 to 30 in a mere 13 seconds. It's terrible. And this car was even worse. It took 16 seconds to get there. It's about like watching a Great Dane run on a frozen pond. It's painful. Packard reported that this car had a top speed of 60 miles an hour. I think it's impossible. The fastest I could get this car up to is 46 miles an hour. Interestingly enough, Packard reported that this car would burn a quart of oil every 2,000 miles. I found that this car burns a quart of oil about every 200 miles. If you tried to drive this car in Berkeley, California, a herd of Priuses would run you out of town. This car was reported to have 52 horsepower by Packard, and it weighs about 3,000 pounds. And with 52 horsepower, that's not a good thing. The steering in this car is incredibly quick. I can do a 90-degree corner with turning the wheel less than 90 degrees. This thing has the quickest steering I've ever felt in an old car. It feels like you're driving a race car. You turn the wheel about 3 inches, you're going around the corner. Which is kind of nice around town, but boy, when you're going down the highway, it's a little on the sketchy side. This thing is definitely a putz around town car. But it's nostalgic. I kind of like the old thing. You feel like you're in 1922 when you're driving this car. And I like that. I wonder if you could actually get your kids to load in the car to go to a Sunday drive or a picnic or something and put down their electronic devices for maybe more than 5 minutes and actually talk to each other like they did back in 1922. Nah, never happened. There's something I just don't understand about Packards. The Packard engineers said that they put this e-brake lever over on the left-hand side, and they carried that clear into the 30s, by the way, so that people on the passenger side had more room, because normally most manufacturers put this e-brake lever on the right side of the shifter lever. Now, women were starting to take to the roads. More and more people were driving. I don't understand how we can get in and out of this thing. Either people were smaller in those days, or I've got big feet. Watch this. Very graceful for a lady trying to get in and out of this thing. What were they thinking? And that's only the first problem. You got to get back out. And that's just what you want people to see when you're getting out of your car, your posterior. Here's another problem. You're tootling down the road, and you need to know how much gas you've got. Well, this is no problem. You pull up and stop. Get out of the car in our usual position of ass first. We rock around the car, and we look at our fuel level back here. What's up with that? I'm afraid that even with cool camera angles and creative lighting, this Packard still looks stodgy and unattractive to me. But there is some technology that came out of the production of the 116 that would serve Packard for 19 years. And here it is. This is a roller rocker setup that they debuted on the single six in 1920 on the Series 116. What they did is they put a roller on this roller rocker setup that rode on the camshaft here, and the valve rode up here. Here you can see it installed in a block in a 35 Packard Super 8. Little did the Packard engineers know, but this design would run all the way up to 1939, 19 years of this design, where the crankcase was aluminum and the cylinder housing was cast iron. And that was another innovation that they did, that they ran for a full 19 years. It served Packard very well. Well, the benefit that it gave them was that with this roller on here, you could get a much quieter operation, and also they would last longer. A roller is going to last longer than a tappet riding on top of the camshaft. And also we can set these guys about a thou tighter than the book calls for, and we never have to adjust the valves in these Packard 8s. This is simply a wonderful design. They only had a couple of changes during that 19-year run. These were a stamped steel arm affair on the earlier ones, and then they changed them to a forging. But other than that, they virtually went unchanged for 19 years.
How was the drive?
Glad it's over.
A little noisy on the brakes there, isn't it?
Oh, it's got bad performance and bad looks, and I've got a spring jamming up my butt right now,
Oh, no.
and another one in my lower back. It rides like a 52 back truck. It has no performance. It'll hardly get out of its own way. And even as you're having that horrible performance, you're going down the road looking old and stodgy and ugly.
Oh no. Can't pick up many chicks in this car, Mark.
No, it's not a chick magnet. It's terrible.
Well, you know, there's a butt for every seat.
That's true. And this car will find a home somewhere.
Okay.
A car's either got to have style or performance, and it's got to be the right price. Or it's got to at least have two of the three of those.
For me, the car has to have some bling.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
has no.
This has no
nothing.
bling. That's reflected in the market. You can go out and buy this car for $15,000, and it's just not a real super blingy car.
Yeah.
You know, this car was a big failure when Packard debuted it in 1920, and it's kind of the same thing today. The only thing that's really going for this car, it would be fun to go get ice cream in, and it is inexpensive to buy. You could buy this car for about the same price as a Model T. So, would I rather have this than a Model T? Yes, but not much more. So I'm afraid that this one gets my thumbs down.
Oh.
You want to go for a drive?
Well, sure.
It's all yours.
It's all mine.